Hello everyone and welcome to video log number 3 of Project Aqua Wallet. We're making these videos as we go through a rebuild on an old 1987 Ski Centurion. It's an old ski boat and we're hoping to fix it up because we can't afford to buy something new. So I'm learning as we go through. I'm hoping that you can learn a little bit and hopefully learn from some of my mistakes so that you don't be doing those in the future. In our last video, we had removed the engine out of the boat, disconnected all the wires, the hoses, throttle cables, etc. Used a gantry that I had built in the garage in order to lift it out, put it onto a dolly, and here we are into video log number 3. So we will be removing the floor, clearing out some of that old foam, and then taking off the windshield and the tower in preparation for the cap removal that we'll see in another video. But for now, here we go.
My mama told me, son, you could be anything, long as you spread your wings. I know one day you'll be great. Just wait, soon you'll aim up at the sky and I'll watch it float away. But now that I am older, I'll admit that I am over all the stress and shit at the...
Alright, so here we are in video log number 3. I do have to let you guys know that I'm a bit further ahead in the rebuild than I am in these videos. So I will be trying to catch myself back up to try and run them in parallel, but to be honest, the actual build is more important to me than these videos, and hopefully they can just be a reference to somebody or everybody down the road who wants to do something similar, or you're just here to, you know, watch someone destroy their boat. Either way, here we go. So, looking at what we're doing, we had already taken out the seats, and I had already disconnected everything out of the engine, so there was quite a bit of stuff that we needed to just clean out of the boat. So Kelly and I went ahead and just spent some time cleaning up the boat, getting everything good and ready, and just kind of cleaned out. So then we ended up taking out the seat as well. We needed that in order to get up to the floor. One thing that we didn't really think about is that the cap extends all the way to the front of the boat, and there was wood and flooring that we needed to remove at the front of the boat. Now, we weren't actually able to get to this until we take the cap off, but that is you know, something that we have to think about. So for any of you guys that want to do this, you know that you have to do your stringers. You've already done a check, you know, do a little plunge check, or just tapping on it to see how hollow it is or not. That is something that's super important. Is you do need to take the cap off in order to get the entire floor out. But it is what it is, and we decided to go this way. So I will let you know as we, you know, make our mistakes and just try and, you know, clarify what I think we would have done better. I did have a lot of issue when we were cleaning out the boat with this vacuum. Just picking up all the little pieces of wood and whatnot. I ended up just clogging up that hose over and over and over again. In later videos, I'm going to end up getting a bigger hose, and it ends up working out better by using something different. So we go back and start by just ripping up the carpet. So we got everything cleaned out, and then just ripping it up, we were able to get it pretty much in one piece. It was pretty quick, pretty easy, and this really showed how crappy the floor was. And if you look on the starboard side, the floor does look a bit different than on the port side. As we go through this, we're going to notice that not only does that look different, but it is a lot nastier. Somebody had gone in and tried to do a quick little redo on that side. They just put down some flooring, didn't, you know, decide to glass it at all, ran new screws into the stringers, and that was one of the biggest problems that we came across, is that those holes that they drilled into the stringers really affected the integrity of the stringers and allowed water to get in, and that was one of the biggest issues with our rot. So as we switch frames here, we are now looking at the port side, which was done correctly. I believe this was factory, and nobody had touched it. I took my 4.5-inch grinder, put a cutting wheel on it, and then using the vacuum tracing right behind it, and a dust mask, of course, I was actually able to cut through the glass, through the wood, and it actually kept a really nice straight line. And then with that vacuum, I was able to collect a majority of the dust, so I don't have a full respirator on, just a little cloth mask. Looking back, I am still grinding fiberglass, so let's be honest, we probably should have had a respirator on. So after I cut it all the way down, Kelly's starting on the foam on that starboard side, and then I'm going to try and rip out this floor. I'd already pulled it up on that starboard side. I did notice that around the engine mounts, it was again glassed in correctly, so I had to be taking another layer of that off. So started moving myself around, doing the same little follow with a hose, but I ran into my motor mount that I decided to leave. So the rear motor mounts, I couldn't get detached from the actual engine, so those ones I took the actual lags out of the stringers, which was one of the ways that I realized that the stringers were toast. And so these ones I was actually able to take the bolt off the top and pull the engine directly off of it. But now, here we are, and I'm going to have to take the lags out anyways. So it probably, again, talking to you guys, I think it probably would make more sense to just take all the legs out, leave that all attached to the engine and pull that out as one unit. My initial hope was that we would be able to reuse the stringers, and so leaving those in would have been super helpful for me in order to do placement of the engine. So I finished cutting that up, and then lifted the floor out in pretty much one piece. Up in the front I had some issues, so I ended up taking, again, same strategy that I had done around the entire boat, cutting a line across, starting through the fiberglass, working my way into the wood, and was able to get that up and out in pretty much one piece. And so now we are moving on to the tower. So that is next in line, and the tower has 4 different connection points. We started by trying to just disconnect them all the way from the cap of the boat, but it didn't really seem to make much sense as we did that, so then we just took the bolts out. We started trying to take the tower mounts off of the cap in this point. The tower mounts were actually bolted through, they had nuts and whatnot on the inside. It was really a pain to try and reach under there and get it all undone, so we decided to just wait to do that until after the cap was off. And then I was also planning on putting in some extra support in there, so that it's not just on the fiberglass, but putting in some plywood and then glassing that in, just to give it a little extra strength. I feel like putting a big tower like that with just screws through the fiberglass was not a good call on the person that originally did this. So we are now moving on to the windshield. Had this little black stripping around the bottom of it. When you pulled that back, you were able to see all the screws, so you see me with the drill pulling out all those screws individually, and then there you go, Kelly had just taken off the black on the port side and now the starboard side, taking out a couple more of those, and yeah, so there's just screws all the way around, very, very straightforward, pretty easy to do. I was actually surprised and how simplistic that attachment method was. As you can see, our port side windshield panel is not there, so we're gonna have to be sourcing out either some plexiglass or just glass, and it's just a flat panel. I don't think it'll be very difficult to replace, but that's where we're at. So there was a front portion of the floor that was inaccessible until the cap was taken off the boat. So I am kind of jumping around here a little bit, but here we are, got the cap off. We're now looking at the bow of the boat. I had purchased a new oscillating tool that just kind of rotates back and forth with some saw blade kind of teeth on the front of it. in order to get into these tighter areas and just have a more precise cut. It worked fantastic. I was putting off buying it because I thought I could do everything with my 4.5-inch grinder with the cutoff wheel, but this guy really saved me cutting out this front, and then also later cutting out the stringers. I would not have been able to do it without this tool, so save yourself some time and a little bit of a headache and a couple trips to the store, and just pick it up. I got 2 different kinds of oscillating bits. One of them was a wood bit, one of them was a metal and wood bit. The metal and wood bit I think held up a little bit better as I was going through it, but the wood bit, you know, the glass is strong, but it's about the same as wood. When you buy your oscillating tool, I would just get 2 or 3 different wood bits, just in, you know, as they dull out, you can replace it and just keep on hammering through. We're now starting to cut. So again, this thing's coming back and forth. I just kind of put that little corner into where I want to cut, and it starts to dig itself in, and then I just kind of bring it along at an edge, flipped over to the other side, got that rolling along. I did have to repeat this a couple times. I was nervous to cut too far through and cut into the actual hull of the boat. So as we're going through this, it's, you know, kind of repetitive, but eventually got it with one big heave and just ripped the whole piece out. Now all of those cables and wires and whatnot from the dash and steering was fed through a hole in that front bow decking section, and I do plan on reusing that tube and everything else. Funny part in there, when I pulled this back, I found a pair of really old glasses. So I just kind of thought it was hilarious. I put them on, you can't actually see me, but I just thought that was pretty amusing. So after I got all that out, it's time to start pulling out foam. This foam actually came out great. This entire section was dry. The wood in the front was actually really good. I had contemplated just leaving this in there and instead of replacing it all, but looking at the stringers, they go all the way up to the front of the boat, and I really didn't want to do half a stringer replacement. So I decided to just go for it and pull all of this stuff out, and yeah, so all the cabling and whatnot really gave me a headache here as I'm trying to remove the foam because it's poured in around that tubing, but it ended up working out great. Hi Maya, hi Mowgli. Who wants the duck? There you go. Love those dogs. Yeah, self-explanatory. So, as a wrap-up to the video, right now we are right before getting the hull separated. In this next video, we'll end up disconnecting all of the dash wiring that you saw at the end of this video. That's up in the bow portion of the boat, going through and removing all the rivets and all the screws that holds the cap onto the hull, and also building a hull support system. So anytime that you take the cap off the boat, the hull actually sits on the inside of it. So when you take the cap off, your hull is going to flex outwards. When you put your floor back in and try and put your cap on, you're going to be screwed. So what I'm going to do is build braces that are mounted to the trailer in order to keep that hull tight, so when I take the cap off, we still have that constrained and it doesn't pop out on me at all. That's the thought. We'll be taking measurements of the boat to make sure that when we put this cap back on and before we even install the floor, that the hull shape is correct, and if we need to make any adjustments in or out, we'll be able to do that to our measurements that we have for the cap. So my name's Austin. This is Project Aqua Wallet. Thank you very much for your time, and I will see you in our next video.
I don't wanna worry about nothing for a while. I just wanna play around, living like a child with old tools, jamming